Well, the Russian establishment didn't waste any time congratulating Donald Trump after President Putin spoke and expressed his hope that this election victory will take the Russian-American relationship out of crisis. And of course, this is the view shared not only by the Russian politicians, but by the people on the streets. I went out this morning and pretty much everyone was saying that they hope Trump will make things better. The logic is very simple here. Hillary Clinton was tough on Russia, Donald Trump wasn't, and even said some few nice things about Vladimir Putin. And so millions of Americans who voted for Trump have voted for improving relations with Russia. This is a very simple logic, it must be said, and it's normally a very feisty representative of Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, who said just a few hours ago that actually the Trump's victory should be assessed soberly, that Trump will work to the benefit of his country first. And the reality is that Russian politicians were watching the same opinion polls as the rest of the world. They were preparing to work with Hillary Clinton. Even if she is an adversary, was an adversary, she was a known figure. Trump is unknown, and I think for the next few weeks before the inauguration, Russian politicians will be watching Donald Trump very intently for any signs of his first foreign policy moves towards Russia.
Thanks for that, Oleg. To you now, Jenny. The German foreign minister saying this wasn't the result that the German people wanted. A slightly warmer response, do you think, from Angela Merkel?
I think it was a very qualified response that we saw today from Angela Merkel. Yes, she congratulated Mr. Trump, but she made the point, she reminded him that he needs to stick to his moral obligations. He needs to abide by what she described as shared values between the two countries. There is a great deal of concern, shock, and I think also horror here in Germany. It's barely disguised in the press here. I saw one headline earlier which simply read, "The calamity." You mentioned the foreign minister, a senior diplomat who was unable to bring himself to publicly congratulate Donald Trump when he gave his reaction this morning. A lot of concern. Amongst the public, a recent poll here showed that less than 5% of German people wanted Mr. Trump to become the president. That's largely because there was widespread horror and revulsion at some of the rhetoric he employed during the election campaign. There's a lot of concern among the business community, industry leaders, banking leaders queuing up this morning to say they're very worried about the uncertainty which follows now. The US is Germany's largest trading partner. There's a lot of concern about what Mr. Trump has said about transatlantic trade during the election campaign. I think, though, the most concern is at political level. Minister after senior MP after minister have queued up this morning to express their distaste for the president-elect. They're very worried about what follows, and that's largely because, as you've already heard, we don't really know what Mr. Trump's policies are likely to be. There's a lot of concern here in Germany about how he views Europe and that relationship, what his relationship with Vladimir Putin is likely to be like, what that might mean for countries on the east of Europe, what's going to happen now in the Middle East. A lot of concern. In the words of the defence minister this morning, we're entering a phase which isn't just a vacuum, isn't just a handover. We've now got lots and lots of questions. Other ministers, you know, aren't mincing their words. One senior MP this morning said, "God save America, turbulent times ahead."
Jenny, thanks for that. Let's go over to Norman now, who is in Downing Street. The mood there, Norman, and the reaction?
Well, I think the mood in Downing Street is a sense that they hope to be able to do business with Donald Trump. They're going to have to do business with Donald Trump, and they have been encouraged by the fact during the campaign, Mr. Trump went out of his way to rebuff President Obama's suggestion that somehow Britain would go to the back of the queue when it came to any future trade relations. I think there's also a view that his victory maybe bolsters Brexit. Certainly it seems to chime with the sort of emotions that fueled his campaign, and a sense that his victory represents change in the international order at precisely the time Britain is seeking change in the international order. Theresa May herself has never gone in for any of the abusive or rude remarks that other British politicians have directed at Donald Trump, and this morning she issued a fairly diplomatic statement.
Well, I congratulate Donald Trump on being elected as the next President of the United States. Britain and the United States are and will remain strong and close partners on trade, security and defence. We have a long-standing and enduring special relationship which is built on our shared values of freedom, of democracy and enterprise. And I look forward to working with President-elect Trump to ensure that we can maintain the security and prosperity of our two nations in the future.
That doesn't mean to say there hasn't been plenty of criticism of Mr. Trump. The leader of the Labour Party in Scotland said he was a liar and a racist. The leader of the Liberal Democrat Party here at Westminster said his victory represented a defeat for liberal values. Another Labour MP described him as a divisive xenophobe. The leader of the Labour Party, though, adopted a slightly more nuanced approach. He said that his victory was a global wake-up call. It was a reaction against the establishment. But he said the answers offered by Mr. Trump were not the right solutions.
A result that's very surprising to everybody.